Hello. Today is a good day. I have permission as a kind of celebration for the end of term to make something good. Not good for you, but good. A disclaimer to this video, this kind of recipe is not something you want to make every day. In fact, please don't make this every week. This is a once in a while kind of recipe. But with this in mind, I will be teaching you to make a chai-spiced rice pudding today. Let's get to it. First, we're going to get our rice ready. Use a long grain white rice for this recipe, like basmati or jasmine rice. You will need 1 cup for the recipe. Now we'll go over all of our spices. We're going to put in some cinnamon, about a 3-inch stick. We'll use some star anise. See how it looks like a little star. We'll use some cardamom pods. I have green cardamom pods, but I believe there are black cardamom pods. They'd be okay too. I use about 8 of them here. We'll also use some allspice. Not too much of this. I use about 6 berries. And I am using my mortar and pestle here because I am a pharmacy student. I almost have to. If you'd rather use an electric spice grinder, that's fine. Our last spice here is going to be cloves. Not too many here, just 3 of them for me. We'll also use some nutmeg in this recipe. That's a whole nutmeg, but it's not going in the mortar. The last thing we're going to put in there is about a spoonful of sugar. No need to be too precise about this. We'll get going. We'll break this all down to a fine powder. Now onto the stovetop, we'll add our 1 cup of rice. You'll notice that my rice doesn't look quite white. That's because I put a little bit of cinnamon in with it in the rice cooker. Helps the rice smell very nice. We're also going to add a whole cup of this whole milk. Together these will be put at medium heat for a couple minutes until you reach a light boil, and then turn down the heat to low and let it simmer for 5 minutes. We'll be sure to give this a good mix so everything's evenly combined. You're going to notice that scraping the spatula through does nothing in particular. We'll get all of our other stuff ready now. So this here is coconut milk. Go to town shaking that before you open the can. It does tend to separate if you don't do that shaking, so feel free to be aggressive. We're going to be measuring out 3/4 of a cup, or 6 ounces of this coconut milk. We'll also be using some either heavy whipping cream or whipping cream. They're similar in fat content, but whichever one you use, you'll need a 1/2 cup. We're also going to need 1/4 cup of sugar in total. What I do, I'll measure out 1/4 cup of this granulated sugar, and because we included a little bit of the spices, I'll dump a little bit out of that cup measure. Back onto the stove top, our rice pudding is doing this, holding its shape when we scrape with our wooden spatula. In goes our coconut milk. Also, there's our heavy cream or whipping cream. Kind of sticks to the container. And there's the remainder of our sugar. And lastly, put in all of our spices that we ground up. Be sure to give this a little stir. You might want to consider using a whisk for the first little bit though, just to break up the clumps of spices. I also include about a 1/2 cup of coconut in this recipe. You don't have to include this, but I just like the texture. Be sure to stir this in. I'm also going to grate just a little bit of that whole nutmeg into the pudding at this time. You want to be sure to stir this in too. And don't put in too much of the nutmeg, it is strong stuff. With all our ingredients in, set your timer for 10 minutes. Maybe a little bit more until your pudding does this. You scrape the bottom with a spatula, it should kind of hold its shape. And there's our product. And there we go. Again, please, please, please don't make and eat this every day. It is not a very healthy idea to do that. That being said, this recipe does make a very nice breakfast. Thanks to the obscene amount of milk fat and carbs in the recipe, it does keep you very full. In the refrigerator, I've had this recipe last for about a week. Serving suggestion-wise, if you go down to the description of this video, you will find a recipe from Good Eats and Alton Brown. And he suggests eating this recipe chilled. I respect Alton Brown, but please, I would recommend not eating this chilled. It gives a very unpleasant texture. The way I would do it is throw a portion of this into a saucepan and throw in a dash or two of whole milk. Click the heat to medium-low, and just give it a stir every so often for 5, maybe 7 minutes. And you'll get essentially what we just saw from the stovetop, and I think that's better than any chilled rice pudding. Thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed.